Greetings, I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So, why do I care about leadership? As a founder of PeopleThink and in my tenure as a leader and consultant, I've certainly seen my share of very good leaders and my share of very bad leaders. And I thought, it'd be great to share the wisdom from the very good leaders, hence the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So you're going to hear from a variety of leaders who are in a variety of roles, sharing their leadership expertise by answering the same 6 questions. Every single leader is unique in their style and approach, and we want to capture that uniqueness and provide you, the listener, with a diverse way of looking at leadership. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Lynette Hoy, who is the founder and the CEO of Firetalker PR. We're going to hear all about Lynette's approach to leadership. So Lynette, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Karen. It's a delight.
Great. So Lynette, tell us, before we even get into our leadership conversation, a little bit about who you are and give us a snapshot of what Firetalker PR is all about.
Fantastic. Well, Karen, there is nothing worse as a leader within a business in the C-suite arena, or even as an entrepreneur. There is nothing worse than working with your teams and your staff and feeling that you're not connecting and you're not seeing the kind of productivity that you need to see. I've been there too. And it's part of why I decided to start my company, Firetalker PR, which is a full service public relations firm. And under the umbrella of my company, I work with many leaders, as I have over my 27-year career, including going into my 11th year now in January with Firetalker PR.
Wow, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I've worked with leaders and organizations like ICG Real Estate Investments, the American Heart Association, National Institutes of Health, and the list goes on. And a part of what I do, besides getting visibility for these leaders and their organizations in the media, to make them industry leaders, is to work within the organizations and also as a mentor to help bridge the gap between being a leader and actually being an effective leader.
A little bit of difference between those two now, isn't there?
Yes, huge difference. And I'll be going into some of that as we talk today.
And, you know, I love the whole idea of leader versus effective leader, because there's lots of people who are in those roles. And I will tell you, they're there because of name, not because of their ability to do what they need to do, which is lead effectively. So this is perfect. This is right up our alley, Lynette. Love it. Love it.
Awesome.
So thank you. So first things first, you know, there's so many ways to define leadership because it's really so personal to each individual. And so tell us, how do you define leadership, Lynette?
Karen, I define leadership as the ability to bring people together effectively from the heart.
Do tell.
Now, I'm not talking about falling in love with your subordinate.
Oh, please. No
dating involved here and coming from the heart. But what it does have to do with is being present in the moment and really deeply caring for the person that you're having that meeting with or that team that you're working with. And it's just so deeply important to remember that everybody has a life. And with 2020, that leave it at the door, you know, with everything that we've experienced between a pandemic and other things going on in our country and the world, that leave it at the door mentality and leaving your personal life and your personal thoughts and all of that is gone. It's gone. So being part of being an effective leader is managing that so that people feel they can be themselves They can talk about what they need to, and you're going to listen and come from the heart in how you respond.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, what I'm thinking about, Lynette, is it's coming from the heart. And it's also that empathy gene, if you will, because the two of them are so correlated together. So yeah, having empathy, as you said, leave it at the door. No, we can't leave it at the door anymore, because we're not going, most of us aren't even going to any door. And so even if we were, it's impossible to do that. Yeah, it's impossible to do that. Okay, I love that, leading from the heart. Good, great. So now I'm curious about the values as a leader. So when I think about values, Lynette, I really think, they're really our core, and they're our guiding light. They're our North Star. I mean, it's how we make decisions, and it's how we really can make the tough decisions, because if we are listening to our values, as hard as those decisions might be, we would know they're right for us. So what are your top 3 values?
That was a tough one for me, really a tough one, because I have about 7 or 8, and they all mean a lot to me. But I think coming from the standpoint of leading, which for me would be leading my clients, as well as leading my staff, which are across the country. And with that in mind, number 1 for me is integrity, doing the right thing all the time. And that is a difficult one. That is really difficult, because doing the right thing in the moment is what we're talking about. It's not doing the right thing within a program that you're designing. I mean, that's important, but when we're talking leadership, it's equally as important to really stand in your integrity in that moment, with a discussion with a subordinate or with someone that is your colleague within the C-suite. In that moment, doing the right thing and how you respond is so critical. And the next thing that I focus on in my top 3 is loyalty. And loyalty holds hands with integrity, because it guides us and makes it easier to do the right thing, to stand in integrity. If you're a loyal human being to those that serve you, as well as the world in general, it makes it far easier to step into that authentic space. And then number 3 is empathy, because that's right. Without empathy, seriously, in our world as it is today, we're going nowhere.
Yeah.
Without
exactly.
empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree completely. And when you think about empathy, I mean, you just talked about it, and I didn't know empathy was your 3rd value, about leading from the heart. I mean, they're so correlated, they're so connected to each other. And when people don't have empathy, what you just indicated, leave yourself at the door. No, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. Integrity, loyalty, and empathy. And as you were talking about integrity, Lynette, I was thinking about, for me, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to get any credit for that answer or that whatever you are doing at that moment. So, and it's funny when I ask this question, because it's 3, and 3 is hard. I just really am trying to get to that true core of where we sit. So yeah, love that you were able to do that. Thank you for that. All righty. So the 3rd question is, and we're going through an enormous amount of transition, and between the global pandemic, the social awakening, the economic implications of both, there's been a lot. It's been a lot. And, I don't even 20 some odd months now. So how do you lead through transition and change? And that question is about yourself as well as your organization, Lynette.
Yeah, that's tough. It's what we're all going through. I mean, I have seen so many dramatic changes within my own business and within my clients' businesses and their employees, as well as my own. And one other thing I want to put in there in terms of what we're dealing with across the board is global warming. I mean, how our environment has changed really also plays to how we lead, because seasonally, we do things differently. We do business differently in the summer than we do in the fall, and differently during the winter with the holidays, and just how we show up and how that plays into our value system changes dramatically with the season. And now that our seasons have, it seems like everything is melting together, every pun intended, that we're having a tough time. But when it comes to what you're saying with these transitional pieces, what I have found through some research that I did, primary research between 2019 and 2020, and then my investigation of that research into 2021, was in interviewing just over 200 people within the C-suite, leaders that managed teams or had 200 to 50 to 200 to 500 employees that they were responsible for. There was a common thread. I found around 82%, and this is going to blow your mind, 82% of those I interviewed, their chief complaint about their employees and the way things were going was a lack of trust. They didn't trust their own people. Now, this really showed up hard and fast in 2020. Everything was already beginning to shift, actually, as far back as the Great Recession, when people were beginning back then to make that shift to flex time. I mean, I'm sure you remember how many people were beginning to work from home, and we saw more and more of it in the late teens and all of that. And so by 2016, 17, more and more of the workforce was starting to work part-time from home and part-time in the office. So this is nothing new, what we experienced in 2020 and what we're experiencing now. So those issues with trust just seem to start boiling, and the heat just got turned up with 2020. And then into 2021, when things are, everything's going to be back to normal, are not back to normal, nor will they ever be.
Yeah, true.
That trust factor really began to show its ugly head.
Yeah.
So when I listened to nearly 200, I think it was 204 altogether interviews, when I listened to them again individually and began making my notes and compiling why this 82 percentile kept showing, how it all came together, I developed a program called PR with Heart. And what that means is, we go back to my values, and these values are what many people share, integrity, loyalty, and empathy. It all ties together with how we lead, and with all of these things going on, what transitions do we see happening? Well, when we lead from the heart, and when I say PR with heart, what that means is guiding our public relations efforts from within, from the heart. And that means internally, because when you talk about public relations, that's what it is. We're relating to the publics within our businesses. That means internally with our employees as part of that internal public, and how it's affected externally. And what that means is our employees, or those we work with, and our clients all have lives. They all have things going on within all of that has changed dramatically. And that leave it at the door deal that you and I were discussing a bit ago, there's no more of that. We can't do that anymore because the lines are forever blurred. So when we're talking about PR with heart, leading from the heart, we're talking about breaking that word heart out as an acronym. So the H in heart is to help, come from an empathetic standpoint, and be able to explore where that person is that we're speaking with, or perhaps that team. What are they dealing with as a group? How are things coming together, and how is what they're experiencing from home affected? How is it affecting the whole framework? So then we look at E, which is, of course, embracing empathy. We look at the A, which is, believe it or not, antidote. We as leaders are the antidote for how we communicate, how our employees communicate with each other, how we communicate with our clients, how our clients communicate with their staffs. We're the antidote, and I can go deeper into that. And then R is for another big surprise, research. What are we doing as leaders to find out where our employees are before we even speak to them? What trends are out there? Are we utilizing this beautiful thing called the internet to be a more effective leader? What trends are out there for people that are working from home? What trends are we seeing within families? What problems are going on? How is all this going to affect our team? And are we ready to address it? Because we've done our homework. We did the research. Now we know. We have a pulse. Here's another thing that might seem invasive to some folks, but it's not, people. And that is to look at your employees' Facebook pages. Do some exploration. Look at their Instagram accounts. Just do some searches, and you'll find where they live socially on the internet. Yeah. Now, all of that is public information, and it's important that we see what's important to them. Did someone die in their family? Has the whole family been sick and they're too afraid to tell me as a leader because I'm going to go bonkers, or I'm going to start asking questions and being hard with them about how they're showing up for work, and is this going to affect your productivity? I am stunned by how much that is still happening. Yeah. And then the T in heart is all about timing. So if someone is, perhaps you're having a one-on-one as an example, and with one of your subordinates, with one of your staff, and they have had a death in the family, how are you handling that? Are you just saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I hope everything's all right? And their response to something like that is going to be, well, thank you. And we're struggling, but we're doing well. Oh, I'm so glad. Well, let's jump into our meeting, and we'll try to keep it a bit shorter so that you can get back to your family. That is not what we're looking for. Right. And I can go into more detail on that, Karen, but just in a little snippet, I'll give you another example of a good conversation that revolves around that whole coming from the heart and the timing piece. So this employee that I'm speaking with, so Jill, how was your weekend? Oh, Lynette, I have some bad news. My mother passed away of COVID, and I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you that this was going around my family. And right now I have it too. Oh, Jill, oh my gosh. I am so sorry to hear that. My heart is just breaking for you that you lost your mother. And I can't believe that you have it. How's the rest of the family? Did the kids get affected? Yes, everybody's had it except me, and now I've got it. And so this might explain why I've been a little slow to respond. Oh, no. Timing is everything. Timing is everything, Jill. And I'm really sorry. In fact, what I want to do is reschedule this meeting right now. This is just not the time. So let's look at our schedules and let's jump on another. Do you think next week might be good timing? So Karen, you can see how I transitioned that whole piece to come from within myself so that I can be of service to this poor person that works for me.
Right. As you're saying, PR with heart. When you think about PR and you see a lot of what you see out in the universe, PR with heart to me really means PR based on the values of the organization. And so that I know that when I read something, it's really true because it's based on the values of the organization. So, PR with heart just kind of sums up what we started with. And when we look at your values as well, which is integrity, loyalty, and empathy. And then I also wanted to make another comment as you were talking, and I was thinking about it. You're talking about the Great Recession and how that impacted people, and this whole idea that you're continuing to bring up, Lynette, about this trust factor. Well, what's going on now? What's everybody talking about now? The Great Resignation. Why are people leaving organizations? Because they don't trust their leader. So you did your own research with 204 people, and what's playing out now in 2021 and will continue to play out in 2022 is that people are leaving their leaders, period. That's what's happening. So, the whole idea of PR with heart makes sense, because if I'm going to work for an organization, I'm going to do my due diligence, and I want to make sure that they are promoting, they are communicating what their belief system is, which then equates to their values. So that's great.
Absolutely. And I read recently I believe it's 45% of those folks that are part of that Great Resignation are starting their own businesses. And this is, and this is through statistics you can pick up anywhere. The Small Business Administration posted some of this research that was done based upon what they're seeing out there. And that's an enormous amount. That is enormous.
Yeah. And it's because people want to do things the way that people want to do things now. And there's more avenues to do so. So one of the transitions occurring is that there's a lot more entrepreneurs out there and literally leaving organizations so that they can do it their way.
Absolutely. And back to that trust word, and you're right. There's so many folks that are leaving because of that lack of trust. And it does go both ways. There's the C-suite not trusting their employees, but there's also the employees, like you said, not trusting their leader. And a part of why that happens, Karen, it's because the leaders are not showing up authentically. Correct. Now, if more people had a conversation with Jill and rescheduled that meeting and trusted that Jill was being honest about her life and what's going on, and trusted her to do her job and be more effective than ever because she's experiencing amazing leadership, I think part of that Great Resignation would not be happening, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Okay. So the fourth question, we know the best leaders are curious and the best leaders are always learning. So what do you do? What are your tools? What are your resources to make sure that you're continuing to grow and develop?
Boy, that's a big one for me because I am constantly in a state of learning. When I was a kid, and actually all the way through university, I was always the one in front, that obnoxious child with her hand up. I know the answer. Pick me, just obnoxious, right? I can't tell you how many times I have even been in virtual trainings where my hand goes up, and the trainer doesn't pick me to speak because I've already chimed in. I've already asked a question. I've already given feedback. So Lynette, it's time for the other kids to speak. So that's something. So with that in mind, I'm an avid reader. And I think when you're in public relations, it's really important to keep the pulse of what's going on around you. When I talk to people in whatever capacity, and I talk about, because as a PR pro, I guide people to become the go-to in the media, right? So as part of that, you need to do your homework. You need to be watching television. You need to listen to different radio stations and different programming, podcasting, all of that. You need to do your reading, what journalists are writing about what, etc. Well, when I hear, I don't watch television, I think, boy, are you missing the boat. Whatever Kool-Aid you drank where watching television is not cool, you screwed up. Because the long and short of it is we get a pulse for what's going on around us, whether we agree with it or not. That doesn't mean you have to live in front of your television. So for me, I learn so much by consuming media. And I have to. It's a part of how I deliver for those that I guide, those that I teach. So learning what's going on around you. And then I use that as a comparison tool to perhaps sometimes what reality really is. So I go to the experts and I confirm that information and I go back. I do things like read Good to Great by Jim Collins. I mean, that book I've gone back to time and again because there's wonderful research in there about leadership. And if you haven't read Good to Great, grab it. It's pre-internet. Go figure. Wow. Pre-internet. And it's really an amazing thing to continuously be educating yourself with media, with books, with podcast interviews, which is another big thing that I do. I listen to many, many podcasts because it's easy, it's information that's at your fingertips. And I focus a lot on leadership. I focus a lot on my craft, public relations. Yeah. I listen to leaders that are all about marketing and how do you create a funnel? What's best practices? How am I going to grow my business that way? Other programming around human resources, because how am I going to learn the best way to hire and engage? And I need to keep up to speed with current trends, and also revolving around public relations tactics. I follow the Public Relations Society of America within my industry. And lastly, I do a lot of workshops. I attend a lot of workshops too. But in attending these workshops, I am consistently looking at what are leaders doing? How am I being taught? How is it making me respond? So part of that learning for me moves a little differently than some folks. So when I'm being taught how to do something, I'm absorbing that, but I'm also looking at how is this person leading me? How am I absorbing this information? And do I want to step up to the plate and do my homework or not? Right. Do I want to be that kid in the front row raising my hand like I've always been? Or do I not? Right. So if I don't, I know I'm in the wrong classroom.
So what's interesting is the breadth of what you do in order to keep learning. And as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as, being in an organization, it doesn't matter if we do not continue to learn, then we will not be able to continue to lead.
That's right.
Then lends to my next question is, what do you do to help your teams develop and grow? What are some opportunities you provide to them to help accelerate their growth?
I do this funny thing that I don't think I've heard anybody do. I literally buy books that I have found of great value in my learning, and I mail them. I have 5 VAs across the country, and I mail them books that I have found a great value in growing my business. And I often will start conversations because there's something about sending a physical, tangible book to someone as a gift or just as something almost like a card, a thank you card for doing a great job. And here's this awesome book. And look at page 352. This might really help you do your job better, not only for me, but others that you serve. Yeah. So if I'm consistently not only helping my colleagues, but helping those that work with me or for me to do a better job, that's a great thing. And it also opens the door for conversation. Yeah. So I always ask, how can I help you do your job better? And there's always time for that. My door is always open. I try to set boundaries around that so that I'm not taking too much time out of my day for a spontaneous call. But I feel that that's critically important.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is you can provide the books and those kinds of things they got to read them. And so if they're interested in learning something else and you're asking and leaving that open to them, then it's their responsibility as adults to request, like, this is what I'd like. Do you have more of this? Can I XYZ? And so I always think it's important for employees, for teams to know that my leader is willing to support me and help them to help me. And therefore, here's what I'd like. Being able to have an open door, being able to say, here's a book, look at page 300, and whatever, and read some of that is a way to open that door and say, it's your responsibility. I'll help you. It's your responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it opens the door for conversation.
Yes. For other conversation, because one never knows where that might lead to.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You might find something in one of your employees that you never knew existed. I mean,
exactly.
There's a lot of leaders now that are jumping on this bandwagon of buying books in bulk. And there's a neat little trick I just want to share quickly that a lot of authors are doing. They are offering up, it's brilliant, really. They're offering up their books as a way to purchase a program from them. So instead of saying, this premium product that I'm offering, this premium program for X $1,000 a year will take you here, and here's the end result, etc. And you're giving a dollar figure. You say, I have 5 packages, and let's say you're an author. I have 5 packages, and each one of them requires that you buy a certain amount of books. So you're making a gross profit from these books, but you're also helping leaders help their employees or their colleagues or by providing bulk book purchases. So you buy X number of books, and then you get to work with this expert to teach you a certain thing. So it's really an amazing way to not only increase book sales for sure, but it's a great way to have an arsenal. I mean, I have several books on against my wall, the same book, and I send it out and I send it out and I send it out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the response that you get from that. So I just as an aside, I just think it's a great thing for authors to do.
Yeah. One more good thing for them to do. All righty. So my last question, of course, is really about how to keep the spirit alive. And so, I talk about joy a lot, and in my life, I think it's really important to have joy. And, it's really important. So what piece of art or music or literature or whatever brings you joy so that you can show up whole, Lynette, and be able to be the best that you can be, because we all need some reserves. And so what do you do?
I have a voice that's not terrific, but I love to sing. And one of my go-tos, it's not too exciting, but I have two major go-tos. The first go-to is I ask Google Home to play happy music. And I have a bunch of songs that Google Home knows about, and they play the songs, or she or he or it or they plays the songs, and I dance around and sing them.
Nice.
And it's a great thing. And it's all songs from back when Christ was a child. So it's just really fun to do that. And then the other thing I do, which is very different, and many people may or may not remember this, but I am a big Barbra Streisand fan. And when I was a child, there was a movie that came out called Funny Girl. And Barbra Streisand, through most of, if not all of her movies, she sings through them. She has many songs that she'll sing as part of that. They're musicals. Some of her later movies weren't full musicals, but at any rate, Funny Girl was just filled with beautiful dance and music. And there is one song in that that my mother and I used to sing together and dance around, and it's called "I'm the Greatest Star." And that song, if you don't know it, listeners, if you don't know it, go to YouTube or your favorite search engine and just type in Funny Girl and I'm the Greatest Star. Or you could even say lyrics to I'm the greatest star. And that is going to pop up. And there's a great video on YouTube from Funny Girl with that song. And it's so inspiring. It's all about how the underdog wants that chance to make it big. And it just fills my heart up. So that way, when my cup is running short, I can fill it back up till it's running over. And then I've got all that extra juicy stuff to give people.
Yeah. Nice. A little dancing always helps. A little singing, Lynette, always helps. It doesn't matter what kind of voice you have. I understand that. So wow. Wealth of information from you today, Lynette. Always a joy to talk with you, and so happy that you are here to share with us your wisdom. So thank you so much for your wisdom, for your thoughts. So inspiring. And now, I mean, how many of us are going to YouTube to look in? I am the greatest star. I know I'll be doing it after I hang up with you. That's for sure. Yeah, so Lynette, before I close out, do you want to say anything to the audience?
I do. For all of you listening, I want to offer you a consultation with me. My email is Lynette@firetalkerpr.com. And I'll spell that for you. But when you email me, in the subject line, put 30-minute consultation. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to write me a note. You don't have to anything. Just in the subject line, put 30-minute consultation. And you're going to email that to Lynette, LYNETTE @firetalkerpr.com. And I'll spell that for you. F like fire, IRE, T like talker, ALKER, PR like public relations.com. So that's an email to Lynette at firetalkerpr.com for a 30-minute consultation with me. And in the subject line, you're going to put 30-minute consult. Easy.
Easy peasy. Love it. And the spelling, amazing how that happens so naturally, Lynette. Love it. So, hey, everybody, thanks for listening. And I'm Karen Colligan, and you've been listening to Lynette Hoy, founder and CEO of Firetalker PR. If this leadership podcast was of interest to you, go to the peoplethink.biz website and look at all the other distinguished leaders I've had the pleasure of interviewing. You're going to learn so much about the uniqueness of leadership. I know I have. And don't forget to share with your colleagues. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. And don't forget to keep it real. Music by Poddington Bear and editing by Mary Lee Williams. Have a good one. Bye now.